I had always heard that the stretch of highway cutting through the visual blankness of the high desert was a magnet for weird occurrences, but I never paid attention to roadside folklore. I'm a long-haul driver, used to the grueling, monotonous rhythm of the asphalt, the hum of the tires, and the heavy weight of exhaustion that settles into your bones around 3 in the morning. On this particular haul, I was driving through a vast, unpopulated stretch of New Mexico, carrying a heavy load that needed to be delivered across the state line by daybreak. The moon was nothing but a thin sliver, offering zero light to the surrounding terrain, leaving only the sharp beams of my headlights to slice through the pitch-black void. My radio had dissolved into static miles back, and the silence inside the cab was becoming oppressive. My eyes were burning, heavy with the kind of fatigue that makes the shadows on the side of the road look like they're shifting and reaching out toward the truck. I knew I couldn't push through the final 3 hours without taking a break. I needed to pull over, stretch my legs, and splash some freezing water on my face before I lost concentration completely. Up ahead, a faded, flickering blue sign illuminated the exit for a remote rest stop. It wasn't one of the massive, brightly lit travel centers with fast food joints and dozens of idling rigs. It was an old, state-maintained concrete pullover tucked away into a grove of overgrown, gnarled trees. When I pulled down the ramp, I noticed the layout was immediately unsettling. The parking area for commercial trucks was completely empty. Not a single trailer was parked under the dim, buzzing sodium lights. The entire place felt completely abandoned, save for one lone, a dark sedan parked at the far end of the passenger vehicle lot, its engine off and its windows heavily tinted. I parked my rig near the center of the lot, keeping the engine running so the headlights would cast a wide, bright glare across the concrete walkway leading to the main building. The structure was a low-slung, brutalist concrete block with heavy iron doors. I hopped down from the cab, the chilly desert air hitting my face and providing a temporary jolt of alertness. The only sound was the steady, mechanical rumble of my own truck echoing off the concrete walls. I walked toward the building, my boots clicking loudly on the pavement. When I pushed open the heavy door to the restroom, the bright, harsh buzz of fluorescent lighting flooded my eyes. The air inside smelled strongly of industrial bleach and stagnant dampness. The layout was split down the middle by a thick concrete divider wall stalls and sinks on the left side, urinals, and a larger utility mirror on the right. Because of the absolute silence outside, I assumed I was entirely alone. I walked over to the left side, approached the sink, and turned on the tap. The water was icy, and I scooped it up in my hands, pressing it against my face and the back of my neck, trying to shake the fog from my brain dot as I grabbed a paper towel to dry my face. The heavy outer door of the restroom creaked open. It didn't swing wide. It opened slowly, deliberately, and then clicked shut. I stood perfectly still, listening for the sound of footsteps, but there was nothing. No boots on the tile, no rustle of clothing. Just an abrupt return to silence. Assuming it was just a driver who was being quiet, I tossed the paper towel into the bin and walked around the concrete divider toward the exit. But as I rounded the corner to the right side of the room, my stomach dropped. A man was standing in the center of the floor. He wasn't moving toward a stall, and he wasn't using a urinal. He was just standing completely upright, facing the brick wall, his back turned to me. He was remarkably tall, dressed in a clean, crisp, dark suit that looked entirely out of place for a desolate roadside rest stop in the middle of the night. His posture was unnaturally rigid, almost like a mannequin placed in the middle of the room. I froze for a split second, a primal instinct in the back of my mind screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with this picture. Trying to maintain my composure and not show fear, I kept my eyes down and walked toward the sinks on this side, intending to just head straight out the door. But the moment my foot shifted forward, the man didn't just turn around, he spun on his heel with an incredibly fast, fluid motion and looked directly at me. His face was completely devoid of expression. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and locked onto mine with an intense, predatory focus. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring. I took a step past him toward the exit door, which was only about 10 feet away. As soon as I moved, he took a long, sudden stride to his left, completely cutting off my path to the door. He didn't reach out for me. He just blocked the exit, his arms hanging limply at his sides, those wide, unblinking eyes never leaving my face. The tension in the room instantly became suffocating. My heart was hammering against my ribs, and the adrenaline surged through my veins, making my fingertips tingle. I realized I was trapped in a concrete bunker with someone who was clearly unstable, and there was no one outside to hear me if I yelled. Acting on pure survival instinct, I didn't try to push past him. Instead, I backward stepped away from him, retreating into the deeper section of the restroom where the stalls were located. If he wanted to trap me, I needed to buy myself time and space to think. The man watched me step back. Then a slow, completely artificial smile spread across his face. It wasn't a smile of amusement. It looked like someone pulling the corners of their mouth back by force. He began to walk toward me. His footsteps were completely silent, as if he were deliberately dampening the sound of his shoes on the tile. I backed up until my spine hit the cold metal door of the very last stall. There was nowhere left to go. I reached down into my pocket, my fingers wrapping around the only tool I had on me, a heavy, steel-handled pocket knife I used for cutting cargo straps. I didn't open it yet, keeping it hidden in my palm, but the weight of the metal gave me a desperate surge of focus. The man stopped exactly 5 feet away from me. The distance was close enough that I could see he wasn't wearing a single speck of dust or dirt on his clothes, despite being in the middle of the desert. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, just staring down at me, breathing shallowly through his nose. Then he did something that made my blood run entirely cold. He slowly lifted his right hand. He was wearing a stark white, sterile latex glove. He didn't point at me, and he didn't reach out to grab me. Instead, he simply tapped his index finger against his own chin, over and over again in a rhythmic, mechanical pattern. Tap, tap. His eyes never blinked. Not even once. The utter bizarreness of his behavior was terrifying. It wasn't the frantic, chaotic energy of someone on drugs. It was calculated, patient, and completely inhuman. I knew that if I stayed pinned in the corner of that stall, I was giving up all control. I needed to shift the dynamic. I looked him dead in the eyes, pulled my hand out of my pocket, and flicked the heavy steel blade of the knife open with a loud, sharp, metallic clack. The sound echoed fiercely off the concrete walls. I held the blade out between us, keeping my posture low and grounded. "Step back," I said, my voice sounding deeper and steadier than I actually felt. "Move away from the door right now." The second the blade clicked into place, the man's rhythmic tapping stopped instantly. His wide eyes looked down at the knife, and for the first time his expression shifted. The artificial smile vanished, replaced by a look of intense, quiet frustration. It was as if a specific plan he had mapped out in his head had just been completely derailed by the sudden presence of a weapon. He didn't run, and he didn't lung. Instead, he took 2 slow, deliberate steps backward, clearing the narrow pathway out of the stall area. He kept his hands raised slightly to his sides, his eyes still locked onto mine, watching to see what I would do next. I didn't lower the knife. Keeping the blade pointed squarely at his chest, I began to sidestep along the wall, moving toward the concrete divider that led to the exit. I never turned my back on him. Every time I took a step, he rotated his body to keep facing me, his gaze burning into me with a terrifying intensity. The moment I cleared the concrete barrier and saw the heavy iron exit door, I didn't walk, I lunged for it. I threw my weight against the handle, shoved the door open, and burst out into the cool night air. I expected to hear the heavy thud of his footsteps chasing after me, but when I looked back over my shoulder as the heavy door swung shut, the space behind me was completely empty. He hadn't followed me out. I sprinted across the concrete pavement toward the idling cab of my truck, my keys already tightly gripped in my left hand. I scrambled up the metal steps, threw myself into the driver's seat, and slammed the heavy door lock down. My breath was coming in ragged, violent gasps, and my hands were shaking so badly I could barely slot the key back into the ignition. Even though the engine was already running, I threw the rig into gear, slammed my foot onto the accelerator, and pulled the massive truck out of the parking lot, the tires screeching against the asphalt as I tore down the exit ramp back toward the main highway dot. As the truck gained speed and I merged back onto the dark, empty lanes of the interstate, I glanced up at my wide side view mirror to look back at the rest stop one last time. The lone, dark sedan that had been parked in the passenger lot was now moving. It had pulled out of its parking space without its headlights on. It was sitting right at the edge of the rest stop exit ramp, completely dark, idling in the shadows of the overgrown trees. As my truck pulled further and further away into the distance, the sedan's high beams suddenly flashed on, blindingly bright, casting long, eerie shadows across the highway behind me. They stayed on for 3 seconds, as if signaling something, and then abruptly cut back out into total darkness. I drove the remaining 3 hours of my route without stopping once. I didn't care about my fatigue anymore. The sheer rush of terror had wiped away any trace of sleepiness. When I finally reached the brightly lit, bustling cargo depot at daybreak, surrounded by other drivers and the normal, mundane sounds of morning commerce, the heavy cloud of dread finally began to lift. I never reported the incident to the authorities. I knew how it would sound, a tired driver catching a glimpse of a strange man in an empty restroom. Without a physical assault or a license plate number for the dark sedan, there was nothing the police could really do, but I never forgot the details of that night. I still replay the sequence of events in my head every time I have to pull over on a long haul. What continues to haunt me isn't just the fact that he blocked the door, or the unsettling cleanliness of his suit in a derelict rest stop. It was the latex glove, the silent, rhythmic tapping on his chin, and the look of complete shock on his face when I pulled out the knife. He wasn't there to rob me. He was waiting there for someone who was completely defenseless, someone who wouldn't be able to fight back. And to this day I know with absolute certainty that if I hadn't carried that heavy steel pocket knife with me into that restroom, I would have become just another unsolved mystery on a dark stretch of desert highway.